All right, we're now finishing, with God's help, the Dvar Malchut that we began for this week in Parshas Va'etchanan. And as it's talking about the great importance of this week's Torah portion, the message that is being sent to us by this week's Torah portion, and when it's especially in this week's Haftorah, the portion of the prophets that we read after the Torah is read, right? The Haftorah. And what does it say? It says, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, be comforted, my people. And the Rebbe says that this hints at, first of all, simple meaning is that God is going to comfort the Jews. He still loves the Jews, despite the fact that he destroyed their temples and etc. And that he has ample reason to be angry at them, which he delineated and explained all these reasons in the 3 weeks, the Haftorahs of the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, which culminated in the remembering the actual destruction of the first and the second temples. So, which was pretty severe, and it was also pretty justified. You know, God tried to hold back, but he just couldn't. The Jewish people just really drove him crazy. And God said, nevertheless, I'll always love the Jewish people. I'll always love them. And that's Nachum, you'll be comforted. What does it mean, Nachamu? Nachamu, a double comforting. So the Rebbe says, well, especially because the word is repeated exactly. So there's a general principle in the words of the rabbis that that the future redemption has a connection with doubles. Right? Lech lecha, for instance, go to you, go to yourself, pakad, pakadati. He brings all these examples that when a word or a letter is doubled over, that hints at the future redemption, because the future redemption is going to be something that's going to be a double anything good that we've ever known. But all those other examples that he brings, there's always a little bit of a change between between the repetition and the original. And here we see there's no change at all. It's going to be the original, whatever it is the original is going to be doubled and redoubled. So that shows that the first original one wasn't really lacking anything. It's just going to be doubled over. And because it's doubled, so that shows that there's no end to being doubled. It's just going to be doubled and redoubled and redoubled and redoubled. So says the Rebbe, therefore, what's going to be that really is waiting for us, this amazing revelation of what's reality really is, and what the Jews are, and that the temple really exists. It really exists. The temple is just waiting for us. And so is this amazing revelation of godliness, which accompanies the third temple and the third temple and the final redemption of all of the Jewish people, which the temple is what's going to draw all of the Jews back to the land of Israel. And this will all be caused by the Moshiach. So we have to understand that it's just waiting for us. And what's this? What's going on over here? Huh? Why does it not move? Something over here is wrong. Somehow or other I have frozen. What happened? I can't. There. How did I get this point over here? 1 second. What did I do? What did I do? Maybe this. Huh? I don't know. All right. I don't know how if you see this pointer over here, or maybe it's just me. Okay. Oh, I guess it's like this, so then we'll know where we are. All right. Okay, so what does this mean to us? What does this mean to us? There's going to be a future redemption. It's going to be greater than going out of Egypt. Come on, we've been saying this for already like thousands of years, almost 2,000 years. What does it really mean? What are we supposed to do? Except not to give up. So the Rebbe says, listen, the fact of the matter is it's going to happen. It's not really our business so much when it's going to happen, but on the other hand, it is our our business. We have to demand, because the whole thing is going to happen for the Jewish people. It's all being done for us. And through us is going to be for the whole entire world. So what really is the purpose of this whole thing? Well, I would really like to get rid of this. See right over here, there's this arrow. I don't know if you can see it, but I would really like to somehow or other delete this arrow. I guess I can't. I'm stuck with this arrow. All right. So what are we supposed to do? So the Rebbe says, what are we supposed to actually do? Cavens, and in some sense that we are found al safa geula, at the end of the future redemption, amitit vashlema, shabo yeyu kol inyanim, that everything that we've been talking about will be in a way of bli gvul, unlimited, unlimited love, unlimited life, unlimited meaning, unlimited happiness. All the good things will be unlimited. But all the bad things have limits to them, right? Even evil, even death. It says God will put an end to death. There won't be any more death. There won't be any more evil. There won't be any more frustration, suffering. All those things are really not really real. It's just an improper reaction to the situation, to the world. Because really God is infinite, God is everywhere, God's creating everything. So there really shouldn't be such a thing as death. There shouldn't be such a thing as confusion. But because God is not revealed, so it's really real. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, God put us in the world, not just to sit here and say, okay, so, let it happen, no. We're supposed to be God's partners constantly, exactly the opposite. Not only when there's the revelation of the future redemption, that means the Moshiach, everything is going to be calm and peaceful, and we're going to be just, floating, and there won't be any more problems, and that's, just going to be a bliss, inactive bliss. No, we're going to be tremendously active, even more than before. All potential will be revealed, and it'll be up to us to reveal it. We won't make any stupid choices. We won't be, paralyzed by ignorance or fear or hatred, or all these things that make people go in the wrong direction. It says, so what are we supposed to do now? Good. Okay, all these things are going to happen. What are we supposed to do? Since we're found now at the edge of this future redemption, and everything will be unlimited. So we have to be unlimited right now. We have to have a little bit of a taste. Erev Shabbos, it says that before Shabbat, you're supposed to taste from all the foods of Shabbat. The foods of Shabbat are supposed to be better than the rest of the week. So it says before Shabbat, you should have a little taste of what they may have. It says even in the Shulchan Aruch, you're supposed to you're supposed to have a little bit of a taste of the infiniteness, the unending good, which will be in the future redemption. Al Yadei, by means of what? Tosefet, by adding on, in Yani Torah of mitzvahs, adding on things of the Torah and the commandments, which are above any sort of limitation. Upapratios, and especially in more detail, you should add on learning Torah. Right? In other words, taste now a little bit of the unlimitedness. I want to say the infinite good that's inside of you by means of what? Learning more Torah. Torah is good. Mosif Lalit, now is the time after Tu B'Av that the nights become longer. Now we can add on the nights in learning Torah. Night is a good time to learn Torah. In the daytime, people are more active externally. Now we can be more active internally. Hein, Nigla the Torah, whether the revealed Torah, the Talmud, etc., laws, whether the Penimis Torah or learning Chassidut, Kola Limud Ayin Yaakov, including learning of Ayin Yaakov. Now, Ayin Yaakov is a very interesting book. That it's a gathering it goes over the whole Talmud, and it brings all the agadata. And there's some things that are in the book of Ein Yaakov that aren't in the Talmud. He had different versions, because you have to remember the Jewish people, wherever they went, they carried the Talmud with them, and the Talmud was huge, immense, and it wasn't printed; it was all handwritten. Right? The Jews have been exiled. When they start printing presses 600 years ago, the Jews have been expelled and moving around in the world since the temple was destroyed 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, and what 1,600 something 700 years ago, that was the Talmud was written down, but it was all handwritten. So there's sometimes there's a little bit different versions and different stories. And Ein Yaakov, he has all the agadata of the Torah, these sometimes very strange stories. And it says the majority of the secrets of the Torah are hidden in the agadata. The od ve'ikar, and even more, limud pnimiyut Torah, learning the inside of the Torah, the mystical aspects of the Torah, the hidden aspects of the Torah. Midivrei Arizal, like the words, learning things from the Arizal, that the day of his passing away was the 5th day of Menachem Av. It just was a few days ago. And Bedoros Elu, in our generations, it's permissible and it is a commandment to learn the ideas of Kabbalah. And especially after Shenit Ba'er B'Torah Chassidus, after it was explained in Chassidut in a way that is relevant. That is relevant. What's going on here? I'm not going to get out of this, huh? A way that it is relevant. I can get rid of this thing like this. Here we go. I don't know how this. Okay. And that is relevant to understanding, that every person can understand. You know, it's a very nice thing. There's a lot of groups here in Kfar Chabad also. There's people that sit and they, it was a custom among the Sephardic Jews, especially the Moroccan Jews. They would sit and they would learn, they would read Zohar, which is a very nice thing. They would read Zohar, but a lot of times they didn't understand it. If there would be a few people that actually did understand, but not everybody understood. So Rebbe said, that's very nice to do, but it's especially good to understand everything. Especially in the Zohar, the Zohar is a good example. In Zohar is a lot of agadata, a lot of stories. Only very small parts of the Zohar, there's what's called in the Idra Rabbah, Idra Zutra, are really Kabbalistic things, are really very, deep Kabbalistic. The rest of it is like Midrash. The Zohar is a Midrash. So anyway, and everyone should try to understand something in the ideas of the inside of the Torah, especially to learn Chassidut. And to add on, that's what the Rebbe wants to say. The Hadgasha Miyucheret, and especially on learning Torah in matters of the future redemption. It's a thing which is people are so confused about what's going to be in the future redemption. What is the criterion of Mashiach, and what is the third temple, and what's going to be with the third temple, and why we have to have a redemption, and all what's going to happen, etc. This is a thing which is the ignorance is rampant. And so especially we should learn Torah regarding the future redemption, this is explained in very great detail and depth and length in the writings of the Rebbe, especially Hein Benigla, the Torah, whether in the revealed Torah, and especially in the book of the Rambam, right near the end of the Rambam, which has included all the laws, Sheshaychet L'Zamana Gula, which are relevant to the time of the Gula, right at the end of the Rambam. You can even look it up online. It's called Hilchot Beit, the Hilchot, what is it? Not just my mind has stopped working. Malachim. Oh yeah. Hilchot Malachim, the laws of kings and their wars. Malachim v'milchamteim. Right at the very end of the Rambam, like the 11th, 12th chapter, that's when it talks about the future, about what we're waiting for Mashiach, and we have to wait for him, and it's a commandment to wait for him, and if you don't wait for him, you're denying the whole Torah. And exactly what are we waiting for? Exactly what are we waiting for when someone comes along and says he's the Mashiach? How are you going to know if he's the Mashiach or not? So it says with the different criterion that there are. and then I mean, everybody agrees with the Rambam said. No one disagrees with what the Rambam says. Interesting. There's other things that the Rambam is Rabbi Moses ben Maimon. He lived like about 900 years ago. The other things that he writes, there's different people that are, almost of his stature, and that they bring disagreements with him, right? They disagree with some of the things that he says. Not that anything that he says is wrong, but there's other opinions also. But in this, what he talks about Moshiach, nobody disagrees with. Only in the last, 100 years, something people popped up, and they try to find other, Mashiach, the Jews can come to the land of Israel without Mashiach, something like that. But that's not based on anything except for their own, fruitful thoughts or mind or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, Mashiach is going to draw all the Jews back to Israel. You read it, learn, and you can read it online, like I say. The laws of kings, right at the end of the Mashiach, at the end of the Rambam. That this, you should learn now. Our custom in Chabad is also to learn these laws between between the 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. We learn about the laws of the Beit HaMikdash. B'kein halachos malachim, and also here it is. I could have just read. Waited a minute. The laws of the kings and their wars and the Melech HaMashiach. Ve'ein penimis Torah, and also to learn the inside ideas of what Mashiach is going to do internally, the spiritual revelation. Shenosaf lakach, that in addition to that, that learning the Chassidut brings the future redemption. Like God said to Elijah the prophet said to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he said that with this book of yours, the Zohar, Yivkun Bey Mina Galuta, the Jewish people will, through it, they will go out of the exile barachim with great mercy. Yesh Ilui Miyuchad Belimud Chalakim, the Penimis Torah, especially learning those parts of the Torah and those parts of Chassidut that deal explicitly with the future redemption. Matov, and how good it would be that this learning will be in a way of, let's say, 10 people getting together. So what's the Rebbe saying? You want to prepare for the future redemption. True, it's really late, but okay, we have to do our part. Increase. What are you supposed to increase in? Especially increasing in Torah, and especially increasing in learning about the future redemption, what's going to happen. And to learn about it not only in the legal aspect in Maimonides and Rambam, but also to learn about it in the inner aspect. And it's true that even learning Kabbalah and Chassidut, that itself, if it's learned accurately, that it brings Mashiach. We're not talking about the Kabbalah Center or something. Learning genuinely what the ideas of Kabbalah and Chassidut, which ideally they're supposed to bring you to do the commandments with more enthusiasm. That's the whole purpose of Kabbalah and Chassidut, is to do the commandments with more enthusiasm. So the ultimate commandment will eventually be bringing the temple, that's the holy temple, that's the ultimate commandment, right? There was sacrifices. So it says, how good it'll be when you learn these things, that you learn with 10 other people. Gehoras, the Dvar Mishnah, like it says, that Shalom Dim bePerkei Avos, like it says in the Mishnah of Perkei Avos, which we say in Perek Shlishi, Shagam Rumas, that is also talking about the third Beis HaMikdash, that by means of, it says, Esra Shiyoshvim, boasting the Torah, 10 people that sit and they learn Torah, it says that the Shekhinah is among them. That by means of 10 people learning Torah, there will be the third redemption, and by means of this, God will comfort us doubled and redoubled on the tragedies of the first and the second temple. Okay, so what are we supposed to do? What does it mean, learning Torah? Or simply speaking, tune into the classes. We have classes every morning. You can look at also in the past classes. Thank God, a lot of people are watching these classes. And we just learn the Torah. That's all. It's just learning Lukuti Torah and the words of the Rebbe. V'yesh lahosif limud hora b'sheichos le'inyan ha'geula gam mitchilas parash shlishi v'stakal b'shlosh devarim. Also in the third chapter of Pirkei Avot, which I think, excuse me, the custom in Chabad is to, and other places also, is to learn on the Mincha of Shabbos, another chapter of Pirkei Avot. Some people stop on Shavuot, the holiday of Shavuot, but we continue until Rosh Hashanah. So every Shabbat, especially the Mincha of Shabbat, the last prayer of Shabbat, right after that, we learn another chapter of Pirkei Avot. This week, we're learning the third chapter until Rosh Hashanah. The third, number 3, has a special meaning to it, but also it starts off and it says, Istakal b'shlosha devarim. Look at 3 things and you won't come to do a sin. Remember, we learned about this before. What are the 3 things you're supposed to look at? Yesh lomar, shegam romaz legeula shlishit. This is talking about the 3 things, is hinting at the third redemption. Right? The third redemption. The Jewish people were in Egypt and they got out and the first temple was built. And then that was destroyed and they were scattered into Babylon. And that's the second redemption. The second temple was built. And now the Jewish people have been scattered around the whole world almost 2,000 years. And that'll be the third redemption. And the third temple will be built. Geula mishuleshet. It will be a 3-part, a triple redemption and the third temple. And this will include both of the qualities of the first redemption and the second. The first redemption, when the Jews got out of Egypt and the temple was built, that came from God, from above. The second temple was built when the Jewish people were in Babylon and they did tshuva. They repented. That came from us. And the third temple will be both of us together. God will do it all and we'll do it all. That's what it says. What does the first Mishnah say? This is a big hint for us nowadays in our day-to-day life. Look at 3 things. Istakel means look deeply. Think deeply into something. That's istakel. Shemora le'iyun v'izbonus. It shows on deeply investigating and contemplating ba'amka yatiran, of extra depth. Right? Here, look at this hat. Look at this hat. See this hat? Yeah, you see that? Okay. Now, really look at it. You see, really look at it. What am I supposed to look at? It's a hat. Look at it. Say, oh, look at it. It's written there, inscribed there, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon. That's right. This hat was owned by the Rambam 900 something years ago. Wow. Is that really? Let me check this thing out. It says, one second, that's written in English. There's English words in there. Come on. That Rambam didn't write English. You made this up. Look a little bit closer, right? And you'll see, no, that was just a sticker. That's what it means. Histakel. It means look closely. You should amko yatira. Look at 3 things. What are you supposed to look at? It says that the 3 things that you're supposed to look at, the Rebbe talked about this before, that everything you look at is supposed to be 3 things. You're supposed to look at what does God want, how it's going to affect the world, and how you're supposed to do it. The 3 things are God, the world, and you. Everything you do. But here he says, look at 3 things. Beinyan geula shlishis. We're supposed to look at everything in the eyes of the third redemption and the third temple. And that's the third thing. 3 things. Mitoch tzefia v'shtachakus, that you should have a expectation and a longing, a special longing. We wait for him every day that he will come. Moshiach. That'll come every day. We want every day that he should come. It's not a commandment to wait every day. The commandment is that he's supposed to come every day. And if he doesn't come, we're supposed to be disappointed and think, okay, so in 1 more second, it's going to happen. 1 more second, b'yom zeh mamash, this day. How much more so, not to get used to it. How much more so, because when we're just on the edge of the future redemption. With more power and more energy. That shows in a way on true love. And this, if you have true love, so you're waiting every day for Mashiach to come. No matter what happens, the life is just not life without Mashiach, because you have to know what Mashiach is. There used to be a thing, I read about it in World War I. I think especially in England, there was a thing. It could be other places. And after World War I, there were war widows. War widows, what do I mean? Well, women, they got married, they were young, they took, the soldiers went to war. A tremendous, ridiculous number of soldiers. I think more soldiers were killed in World War I, more soldiers than all the other wars. Anyway, so all these soldiers, they went away and they didn't come back. Especially in England, there was a big, the population of England isn't that big, and there was a big number. So there's women that they had just recently got married, and their husbands were taken from them. They never come back. So they became war widows. They're just waiting for their husband to come back or whatever. And they can't get married to anybody else. They can't get married to, they remember their husband, and they're waiting impatiently that either he should come back or something. But maybe so it's the same thing with the Jewish people, right? We especially when you read in Chassidut what exactly Mashiach is and what the Jewish people are and what the first and the second temples were, and etc. So we're just waiting. Of course, the difference is that we're not widows. I mean, for sure, God exists, and God, we're just separated. And so it says that's what it means, that you should wait impatiently for Mashiach to come, because we can't really get connected to really anything else, not in the way that we're connected. He's going to reveal our true Jewish identity. We can say that this, looking at the things of through redemption and the third temple, that's the three things that we're talking about. You should look at first, second temple, and the third temple, and the first and the second redemption, and the third redemption. This brings shleimut b'kol inyani avoda. When you're always thinking about the third temple and the accompanying revelation of God that's going to be with this, as that will increase and put a new meaning and depth into everything that you serve, all of your service of Hashem. Those are the three things of Torah, avoda, gemilut chasadim. Another three things: learning Torah, prayer, and doing good deeds. That is done. All three of these things are supposed to be done, each one of them with thought, speech, and action. And more exactly, Torah is thought, avoda, prayer, is speech, and gemilut chasadim means action. Avoda is chalkos. It shouldn't be both in learning Torah. There has to be thought, also speech and action. When you pray, there also has to be, in addition to speech, there also has to be thought and action. You have to say the words. And gemilut chasadim, when you do kind deeds, it has to be not just action, but there also has to be thought and speech to say good words to other people, etc. That there should be, it shouldn't be that there's the three different things. Everything should be unlimited. What you're doing is to serve God. God wants you to think, you think. God wants you to talk, you talk. He wants you to do, you do. There's no difference, and everything should be done in an eternal, as much as you can, way. Not to think about limitations. Because when there's no limitations, so then everything will be complete. And also everyone will be different. We can also add onto this what we said before, the addition and learning Torah, that we should increase learning Torah. It says that the nights become longer from the 15th day of Av and onward. The nights become longer, so we should add on learning more Torah. Those are the three things that also hints at the Torah. The Torah is triple. The Torah is what's called a triple Torah. Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. There's the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. There's all the prophets, right? Isaiah and Chezkel and etc. And then there's what's called the Ketuvim. Psalms, the book of what do we call Lamentations. We just finished reading the parables, Proverbs. Kol el b'miyuchad, especially Torah Chadasha Mitei Teitze. Especially it's going to be in the future redemption that the Torah is going to be new. What does it mean it's going to be new? That we'll feel the godliness, the novelty in every word, every letter of the Torah, and every commandment we do. But Geula Shlitzit in the third redemption. The preparation is by means of adding on learning Torah in a way which is unlimited from the 15th of Av and onward. Now this, talking about learning Torah, it's only a commandment for the Jewish people to learn Torah. And non-Jews are not supposed to learn Torah. They're not supposed to learn Torah, things that have no relevance to them. Regarding their 7 Noahide commandments, they're supposed to learn the Torah. And even laws of ownership and monetary things and damages, they're also supposed to learn the Torah. But even then, they don't have to learn the Tosfot, what Tosfot said, and what all these different commentaries says. That's already part of the mitzvah of learning Torah. But even things that aren't relevant to action. The Jews have a special commandment to learn Torah. Vishinantam levanecha. We just learned that in this week's Torah portion, in the Shema Yisrael. So this is speaking especially to the Jews. The Rebbe here is speaking especially to the Jews. And maybe I'll just tell you a sikha after we finish this. Let's see if we have time. Alpiza, according to this, so now we can understand what the Mishnah tells us. Look at 3 things, and you won't come to do a sin. What does it mean? Right? That's the first Mishnah. Shenil Meres B'Yoma Shabbos that we're going to learn now, and this Shabbos is going to be Chamesh Asar B'Av, the 15th day of Av. Sha'av shebeChamesh Asar B'Av. Everyone will decide. Each one will decide and actually begin to add on learning Torah. Nevertheless, on the day of Shabbat, you have to histakel, judge very carefully another time. These decisions that you make, these resolutions that you make, here when the Rebbe is speaking, 15th of Av came on Friday, so you made the resolutions. Then on Shabbos, the Rebbe said you have to check it out. But now on this year, the resolution and the Shabbat comes on the same day, the 15th of Av. You have to check yourself out and to add on even more the day after Shabbat. And in a way of double, like we said, double and redoubled, as much as you can. If you remember what we learned, it says there in the Tanya that to learn, go over something in the Torah, let's say you always learn something once. So to go over it twice, this is like double. But what if you learn something 5 times? It says if you learn something 5 times, you go over it. To go over one more time, that's also called double. It says in the time of the Talmud, it was the custom to learn everything over 100 times. And if there was somebody who learned 101, that was as though he learned double, because he went out of his nature. And that's what the Rebbe is saying. To learn something double means going a little bit out of your nature, learning a little bit more, 1 more minute. Going, after you finish learning, go over the material in your head that I really understand and make a summary. You should learn Torah in such a way that it's a preparation for the unlimitedness of the new Torah that the Moshiach is going to reveal. The renewed Torah, the fresh, live Torah, Hashlemut the Orientalitin, this completion of the 3rd triple Torah and the 3rd triple redemption. Yehiratzon, maybe it be God's will. Sheistalklut, that looking deeply and contemplating in all of the topics of the future redemption that we just talked about, and especially and the 3rd temple, these number 3, and you look at these 3 things, the 3rd redemption, the 3rd temple, we will merit speedily and immediately that there will be this 3rd redemption. The Rebbe is not just talking, parlor talk over here, that you can impress people and I know what the 3rd redemption is going to be like, right? That's also nice if you want, but that's not the point over here. The point is, it's supposed to really happen. There's supposed to be immediately Beit HaMikdash HaShlishi, the third temple, B'Pol Mamash. Take of a miyad mamash immediately. I mean, listen, if there's no other novelty, the newspapers and the media, they love to report bad things. Ooh, bad things. Nobody wants to hear good things. Man helps old lady across the street. Headlines. Nobody cares about that, right? Someone gave about $1 million to charity, right? No, they say he gave it for ulterior motives. The media loves to say bad things. It catches people's attention. Well, when the third temple actually comes in Jerusalem, and it's in all the papers, that itself is going to be one of the biggest changes maybe in the history of the world, that all of the newspapers in the world will actually have headlines, something good. And it'll interest everybody. And they'll send all the reporters to see this good thing, this beautiful thing, and everybody will be happy and they'll be rejoicing. But Pashtus, and especially, you should know that the Arabs, the Muslims, right, if the Moshiach really comes and builds the temple, they'll be very happy. They're waiting for something like that. I don't know. I mean, the Christians they'll drop their religion. So, although I'm not sure that some of them will. Some of them say, no, you didn't understand it, right? I don't know what they're going to do, but the Muslims, they're waiting for a true leader to come along and make peace in the world. Nothing would make them more happy. Nothing will make them more happy. So that's for sure. It's going to be in all the papers in the world, all of Arabia, and but Parshas, and especially in Shabbos, Parshas Ve'eschanan. This Shabbat, Parshas Nachamu, Lifnei Hatchalat Akriya, before we start to read in the Torah, Vaye Ekev Tishmu, next week, Parshas Ekev. We're reading this week, we're reading Parshat Etchanan, but a Mincha, we read the next week's portion, which is called Ekev, that even the heels will listen, will feel godliness. Especially now, the heels, Ekev, this is called the last days, the heels of the Mashiach, that then for sure will listen, and every Jew will do and observe all of the Torah. Everything in Torah, all the commandments, thought, speech, and action. Because you have to realize that the Torah and the commandments are not just from religious people. It comes from God, the creator of the universe. Nothing is better than that, the creator. And everyone, the Jews, will rejoice to do the commandments. Mitkaimim b'keshet Moshe, then they will be finished. There will be finished all the bad in the world, and the request of Moses will be fulfilled. Moses, it says, was the first redeemer. Remember, he took us out of Egypt. And it says he'll be the last redeemer. There'll be a spark of Moses in the Mashiach as well. What did Moses say in this week's Torah portion? Ebra, now please, God, let me go over the Jordan River and see the Holy Land. Hahara Tova Zeh, that's Jerusalem and Levonon. Remember, we learned that in the Chumash class. And Levonon, this is the third temple. That Moshe Rabbeinu and all of his generation, all those that died in the desert, and all of the Jewish people in all of the generations, together with the Jewish people in our generation, our Na'arenu, our youth, our elders, our sons, our daughters, Nasi Dorenu, the previous Rebbe at the head. The Rebbe always used to say, the previous Rebbe, he's the Mashiach. He'll take all the Jews into the future redemption. Boim v'nichnasim, they'll all come. They're also, the Rebbe said that he's not really anything from himself. He's just an extension of the previous Rebbe. So they'll come to all the Jewish people actually come into the Holy Land, to the holy city, to the holy mountain, and to see the holy house, the third temple. Chogigim sham et simchat hagula, and we'll all rejoice with the third redemption. Mitoch simcha gadol, tremendous rejoicing. Simchat beit hasheiva, like it says, the joy, rejoicing of the water drawing ceremony. And it said one who didn't see the water simcha of the water drawing ceremony, he never saw joy in his life. And like the rabbis say at the end of Gemara Ta'anit, that over there it says that the 15th day of Av was and Yom Kippur were the best days of the year. Atira Kodesh Baruch Hu, that God is going to make Machol Tzadikim, a big dance, a circle. They'll be dancing for the tzaddikim. V'hu yoshev, and God will sit among them. And each one will point with his finger and say, Omer bayomahu hine Elokeinu zeh, like the Jews said when they crossed over Yam Suf. Zeh keli v'anril. This is my God. It says even the fetuses in the wombs of their mothers, they pointed. Also in the future redemption, everyone will say, this is God. Kivino lo. We waited for him. We waited for him. We didn't give up. V'yosheinu, and he saved us. Zeh Hashem tivino lo. Everyone will see the Creator. It'll be like being in the Holy of Holies. Negila v'nismacha b'yeshuato. Then we will rejoice in his salvation. It says also the salvation of who? That God will save us, but also God will be saved. It says when the Jews are in exile, that God has pain. God is in exile. Gola shechina lebavel imam, gola shechina the Edom imam. It says that God's presence also is in exile. God is also suffering. V'kol tzarotam lotzar. And when the Jewish people are all brought back to the land of Israel after the temple is built, then there'll be a tremendous, tremendous rejoicing. And even God will be rejoicing. He'll also go out of the future exile. As God willing, we'll see immediately. And I would just like to go over a little sikha of the Rebbe, which will take 3 minutes, but I think it's very beautiful. This sikha is found in Likutei Sichos Daled, and it's in Yiddish. But I'd like to summarize it in 5 minutes because I think that it's very beautiful. This week's Torah portion talks about it repeats the story that we heard in Yitro, in the sort of beginning of the book of Exodus, about the giving of the Torah. Remember, we learned here in the 10 Commandments. So it says that there was a big voice, Kol Gadol V'lo Yasaf. It says it was, you heard on Mount Sinai, you heard a big sound, V'lo Yasaf, and it did not increase. So it says, no, here it doesn't mean, Yasaf doesn't mean increase. Yasaf usually does, but here it doesn't mean that. It means it didn't stop. Lo Yasaf. It's also another meaning. There's a big voice and it didn't stop. So the Rebbe says, what does it mean, the big voice that didn't stop? So he brings 3 explanations that are given by the different interpretations in the Midrash. One is didn't stop, that the voice of God continued for all the generations and all the prophets and all the rabbis. It didn't, the voice on Mount Sinai didn't stop there. The voice of the Torah. The voice, what was it, Mount Sinai? The Torah. Another interpretation is that it didn't stop. It was translated into 7 voices and then to 70. It went into the 70 languages of the non-Jews, the whole world. It didn't stop as far as language was concerned. It wasn't just Hebrew. It went into all the languages of the world. Third, it didn't stop. There was no echo. Right? When somebody speaks and there's something that stops the speech, so the speech bounces back. So the Rebbe said, okay, that it went into 70 languages, I mean, that it went into all the prophets. Good. That means that, in all the future generations, that all the words of the rabbis and all the oral Torah, the Talmud, don't think that that's just somebody made it up. No, that's the same essence of God that we heard on Mount Sinai. What was the main thing of what we heard on Mount Sinai? When God said, Anochi Hashem, the oneness of God is in the Torah. Anochi Hashem, the oneness of God is revealed only in the Torah. That's the whole thing of Mount Sinai. God himself gave the Torah. So this oneness of God will be in all the prophets and all the rabbis, the true, genuine rabbis in the future, God-fearing rabbis in the future that are in the Talmud, etc. So that's understood. What about the thing what's in? That's why it didn't stop, that it went into the voices of the prophets and all the future generations. Good. What does it mean that it didn't stop, that it didn't stop just with Hebrew, it went into the other languages? Says the Rebbe, because in the Torah, there's also 7 Noahide commandments. So this implants in every single non-Jew, and there's all the languages of the world, also the feeling that there is Anochi, the essence of God. and that the 7 Noahide commandments come from the Torah. It's not just 7 Noahide commandments, nice, philosophical philosophies that, that are made up and, by enlightened people. No, the 7 Noahide commandments also come directly from God. And really the 7 Noahide commandments, we maybe should make some classes about that, because the 7 Noahide commandments, that's only the negative ones. But they say there's a lot of positive ones. They're not exactly commandments like the Jewish people have, but they are definitely, the orders in life that God wants every human being to do. So in generally, don't kill, don't steal, don't commit sexual crimes, homosexuality, bestiality are forbidden. Don't blaspheme, right? Don't worship anything except for God. Don't eat meat that was taken from an animal before he died, and make courts of justice to impose all the previous 6. Okay, that's in a general way. We'll talk about it another time. Anyway, that's so because God's voice at Mount Sinai went into the 70 languages, so therefore it put into the non-Jews also a desire to do their 7 commandments, and even more, that the 70 languages, now when you speak the words of Torah, you translate it into other languages, that's also holy. The words of Torah can be holy, and even more, it gives the ability for the Jews to, wherever they are, with the words of Torah, the Anochi of the Torah, to refine the world. But what's this thing about that there was no echo? So says the Rebbe, in a way, that's the main one. There was no echo. When there's no echo, it means nothing stops it. So the same thing with the Torah. Nothing in the world can stop the Torah. Not time, not space, not people, not everything in the world from Mount Sinai, everything in the world became permeated with the Anochi, with the oneness of God. And that prepares the way for the future redemption. In other words, it was already begun. The ice was already cracked at Mount Sinai. Everything is already permeated with the godly revelation of the Torah. So the fact that the Torah contains and reveals the oneness of God, this is not just a thing for the Jews. It's for all of mankind, and not only just for mankind, but also for all the plants and the animals and the rocks and everything in the world now can be used to serve Hashem. And that's what it means. It was a big voice and it didn't have an echo, lo yasaf, that it kept going and keeps going and permeates everything constantly in the world. So our work is not an impossible one. We don't have to make a new thing. All we have to do is just continue what God began in Mount Sinai and reveal more godliness in the world. And now let's just do Hayom Yom for today. And we'll see for tomorrow. The 14th of Menachem that's today, is 50 years since my father told me to record the stories that he told. This is the previous Rebbe talking about his father, the Rebbe Rashab. When the Tzemach Tzedek began writing Talmudic subjects, the Alter Rebbe, his grandfather, the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Tzemach Tzedek is the third Rebbe. First Rebbe of Chabad said, Kana lecha chaver, make a friend for yourself. But the word kana also means a pen. A pen. The pen should be your friend. In other words, write everything down. You don't have anyone to learn with, write everything down. My father said, the Alter Rebbe, the Kanei Lecha, and he said, this is talking about also the pen of your heart. Whatever you learn, you also should experience this and feel it emotionally. It should be a thing that inspires your love. What about tomorrow? Let's see if we can hit it. Here we go. Yes. Yes. Well, here can hear different rabbis saying it. Very nice. Okay. The 15th of Av is superior to every other month because this 15th of Av, the moon is complete. The moon only receives light in every other month, but in the 15th of Av, the light of the moon itself shines. It comes in because we're talking about it's a reaction to the 9th of Av when everything was darkened. That's what it means. The sun's power gets weakened after the days become shorter after the 15th of Av. The summer becomes less intense. It says the idolaters, they calculate their calendar by the sun. The sun is how does he translate it? Morning. Okay, it says evil. All right, I don't know if that's the right word. Anyways, the idolaters, they calculate their calendar by the negative sun. Why is the sun called negative? Because it never changes. Nature, which that's on the 15th, but on the 15th, the power of the sun is weakened. In the days of the sanctuary, it used to be a big thing by the non-Jews. They worship a thing called the Baal. That used to be a sun god, not Baal Por, but in the sun, it says the nations were all subservient to King Solomon. And that's what's going to be in the future when all the nations will go for their advice to the Moshiach in a state of total surrender. Like it says, I'll take the spirit of impurity from the world. That's what it means on the 15th of Av when it says the sun is weakened, the days become shorter and shorter. This is already a hint at the future redemption. Have a good Shabbat, everyone, with Mashiach now. Hope to see you all on Sunday, 8:15 in the morning, when we'll begin learning again the Likutei Torah and Dvar Malchut. So see you all. God bless you, and have a good Shabbat with the future, with the third redemption and the third base of Mikdash now.
Thank you, Rebbe.
Thank you. Shalom.
Have a good